to the Halsey Institute. My name is Pamela. I'm a community engagement coordinator. The show that we have on view right now is the Long Bells When the Land Meets the Lawn. So I hope you get a chance to walk around the hall and see that. Welcome to our poetry reading. Our first poet, and also a part of the Moja Arts Festival. We're so grateful to be a part of, and that goes through, I think, Sunday, about 8. So check out all the different events that are related to that. I'll introduce our first poet, who is iahMae. iahMae is a Black, non-binary Southern poet, humorist, and cultural worker with roots in Georgia, South, and North Carolina. A multi-hyphenated artist, their background spans across film, curation, production, performance, and language arts. iahMae is a watering hole fellow, and their work has been featured in the Gibbs Museum of Art, Charleston Food and Wine Festival, the Postal Courier, and more. They are the co-creator of the writing platform For the Scribes, and currently serving as the second poet laureate of Charleston, South Carolina.
Thank you to the Halsey for having me out. Thank you for being a part of this with me as well. It's Moja, my favorite festival, for having this event be a part of that. I'm not going to stay here and bother you all too much with my diary entries, because that's essentially what my poems are. So I'm going to do 3 little poems for you today. 2 of them are quite new. One of them is like an old favorite. So I'm going to start you off with Song of the City. The day begins with a held breath. A swell of symphony teases the air as the 6 a.m. light on the Ashley Phosphate Bridge serves as conductor, and we rumble with a slow and steady hum. We, ever restless, await our cue. The opening chorus lay fertile beneath our tires. The brass section takes over and a chorus erupts, our voices carrying from staff to staff as we prepare to add effects. We blend in swift inhales behind dumpsters and company bands with the world of break room coffee and the creak in our plaster smiles, accumulating in crescendo with the ring of that first bell, ending good morning. This is the song of our city, of hour-plus commutes and clothing shifts. This is the song that labors and lullabies long after closing, even if it's too faint to hear. Like I said, most of these are like diary entries for me because I'm not usually as expressive in my everyday life as I am in my poetry. And this next one is called Figurative Language. I wrote it for my mother because we are not a very verbal family, which is, again, surprising that I ended up being a writer. But yeah, this is Figurative Language. This is, again, a poem for my mother. My mama doesn't speak of love. We feel it in the full dinners before the graveyard shifts and the crisp pleats in our good clothes. She greases love on my scalp and my edges, maneuvers love by robbing Peter to pay Paul. Love be her ASL on good days. Mama doesn't speak of love, so we find a bridge in Marriage and Blind Records. Mary be Mama's Valentine's Day, Mama's Girls' Night, Mama's Anniversary. Mary Morse, Mama's vocal cords, and we feel love dancing on the freshly vacuumed carpet in the hallway, bouncing off walls next to family photos and magazine pages, playing tetherball with sunbeams. Love them started a concert in the kitchen. Love them wrapped herself around us so like warm, creamed grits and black woman incense, looking 10 years lighter than before, skin the color of the pancake she just flipped with the edges perfectly crisp, with her edges perfectly laid. Love got her scarf still intact and her silk robe to match, running on 4 hours of sleep, anticipating that extra shift she picked so I could go on the class trip. Love sits my plate in front of me with a forehead kiss and a song about heartbreak falling from her lips, and I know what love is without ever uttering her name, because I know her face and her voice, and when she sings to me, I never have to wonder. I always ask for an encore. I always know she's prepared. Again, I write a lot about love. And I also banter a lot during these poetry readings. Most people are probably like, why is she doing so much talking? I'm awkward. So there's that. So we have to sit through this together. But speaking of love, I again was never very verbal about it outside of my writing. And I realized early on it was an easy way for me to communicate with my friends that I love them. And so this is actually a piece that is a first draft of a poem about a friend breakup. I'm not quite fond of them. They hurt worse than anything else. And this one needed to come out. It was very therapeutic. So again, it's a first draft. You may hear it later and be like, that's not how it sounded before. Don't tell anybody else that. I miss you. Not once in a blue moon, but like every time someone utters a word that sounds like your name, like sky or cry, I'm breaking my lips apart to wonder if you miss me too. If you think about me during water sign full moons, or if the thought of dating a Gemini man still makes you laugh and cry like it used to, I miss you. The old you. The one who rubbed my back while I paid my dues to the porcelain gods in the iahMae bathroom, who taught me how to put on mascara with one hand while I brushed my teeth. You were the first person I'd ever met that personified the word free, and I wanted nothing more to be more you and less me. You loved me like I was made of pink tourmaline when I felt like glass and proximity. I didn't get it, but I was grateful. And on days when I'm really loving myself, I miss you. The gold crackle of your laugh, watching Bring It On at 3 a.m., the way you always reiterated, that's my sister, not my friend. It kills me that I miss you. You're not dead, but you might as well be. Like you're somewhere floating in another ether, and no matter how ardent my desires may be, I'll never get back to you, and you'll never get back to me. I miss you. I miss you. And I'm still hoping that you miss me too. Yay, sadness. Okay, I have 2 more pieces for you. Like I said, I'm not going to take up so much of your time today, because I'm very excited about hearing you read. But it's funny, as a poet, I've never been one for form. I've always just kind of been like, this sounds good, this feels good to say. And last year, someone convinced me to try a sonnet. And I was like, I don't know what sonnet is, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I've heard of them, but I've never tried them. And then they broke it down for me in a musical way that I understood. And I was like, oh, basically it's all rapper, period. I got this. So I wrote a sonnet, and I'm still, again, playing around with it. So it's another draft, but I haven't it before. This one is untitled. This is the part where we let there be light. Our Genesis, the rose of Jericho. Unfurling holy water soaked delight, we come to the silence of falling snow. This is the part where we let there be fire, ridicule the water, point at the steam. This is the part where we curse our desire, waking us up from our midwinter's dream. This is the part where we water our dirt, we long for sprouts, but we vow to be clean. This is the part where we both will be hurt, our flowers must die, our sorrow foreseen. This is the part where I pay for my sins. I know I am house. I know that home ends. And I have this last little piece. It's called Benefaction. And it was commissioned at the matriarch's dinner at Charleston Food and Wine earlier in the year. And they really gave me free rein. But when I really started to think about the women that we were honoring that night, and how special they were, not just to my childhood, but to their own families, I I started thinking about the women in my family, and the one thing that they all have that I don't have is that ability to cook. I didn't get that. I did not get that. I can make food edible. I cannot cook the way that they can. So this piece was written for those women, but also written for the women in my family who made me understand the spirit of cooking. And again, it's called benefaction. The first time I ever prayed, it was at a kitchen table. God bless the hands that prepared the food. Thank you for the love in them, the love that labors, cradles cheek and ladle, seasons and pinches with senses I can sense. What didn't need to be explained, I knew something greater than I existed, and we needed to give thanks. It made sense while we gathered. Placed hand in hand, our syllable movement, heads bowed, giving reverence to the energy coursing, the palms of another reminding us that we too, like good food, are warm and filling, that we are worthy of being warm and full, and a full life requires warm bodies to break bread with glad and sincere hearts to remind us that we are blessed. Blessed to be able to call upon a name for nourishment and have that call be answered, to share that blessing with others, to know how it feels to be truly loved. And so we gather, a recognized ritual passed from hand to hand by those chosen to lead, and before we partake, we give. Praise be to the chefs, and praise to the spirit of nourishment that moves through them, that my grandmother named God and we respected by cleaning our plates. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Aisha. Well, just want to say that we'll have refreshments in the Hill Gallery following the reading, so stay with us. But now it's my pleasure to introduce Marlanda. Marlanda Dekine is from Plantersville, South Carolina. They are the author of Fresh and Cold. And I am from A Punch and a Kiss, a recipient of fellowships and awards from Gender Benders, the South Carolina Arts Commission, Castle of Our Skins, Tin House, Palm Beach Poetry Festival, and South Carolina Humanities. Dekine's poems can be found in anthologies, composed music, and in literary publications, including poetry, Oxford American, Orion Magazine, and elsewhere. So please welcome Marlanda up to the podium.
Hello. How are you all? Good, good. iahMae, beautiful. Thank you. I gotta go write my mama something now. I was like, ooh. I feel really happy. I'm trying to get my timer on, so I don't talk too much to make sure let's just, for a second, just think about what we're sitting with today. Levon Bell's When the Land Meets the Body. Like just that as a saying, or as a meditation, when the land meets the body. My book, Fresh and Cold, was written at a time in my life where you feel kind of forced to do something that you don't want to do. When you look back, you're like, oh, that's a little bit more divine inspired or something. But I had to move back into my parents' house after 15 years away. And during that time, I started to see a therapist who was also a practitioner of traditional African systems. And she encouraged me to sit with the land around me, because my parents live on heiress property. And I started to feel and think about how the land that I was living on was the same land my grandparents walked. My grandmother, who had died 5 years before I was born, had harvested broom fields there. What it meant to touch objects that she had touched. What it meant to walk outside and see the same red hawk over and over. Who did the hawk know that I didn't know? Had the hawk that, I don't know how long hawks live. I'm like, is the hawk from my grandma? I don't know. But that kind of curiosity And as a kid, I watched Ghost Rider a lot. Anybody remember Ghost Rider? Yeah? It was good. Excuse my language. So it's good shit. But Ghost Rider, you walk outside, or I walk outside with my notebook, and I have a little notepad, and I just look at this guy. My parents thought it was so weird. I just look at this guy and I'm trying to write down messages from some other where. During this therapeutic thing that I was going through with this person who's also a poet, I was encouraged to write letters to my grandmother and to write letters to ancestors who had passed on before me. And then I added this piece that's kind of strange, but it was let them write back. And then I learned that Lisa Clifton did a lot of automatic writing. And so I followed that path and said, okay, I'm gonna keep my hand to the page and see what comes out. And then taking that language and crafting it further into poems. And all this time, while I'm working on something that makes no sense to me logically, I'm in a small group of meeting with people over Zoom with Kamala and other artists around South Carolina. And we're talking about what we're making during the pandemic. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but it feels good, the music's there, and I'm gonna just keep following it. And so I'm happy to share with you some poems from that project. I have to say, because I'm in Charleston, that the cover art is from Fletcher Williams III, who has art hanging right now, I think, at the International African American Museum. The first poem I want to share from Thresh and Hold is Grain Memory. And if you will, I'd like for you to just imagine you're in my other grandma's, the one that raised me, with my mother and my father, in her front yard. Grain Memory. A wishbone branch falls from my grandma Thelma's oak for me. What do you know about magic? He asked. He bends the old body down, turns the wishbone branch into a cross, places it around my neck. I am strapped at the Black River's right shoulder, remembering my grandpa Mose never wore anything but church. My purple head begins to feel cold as clergy, parched. I ask for water. He gives me water and rice, says to repeat after him. I am fly from nature, nature fly. 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 Ah, I get it. It's an affirmation, I say. And he laughs in wind ocean songs. He whispers, do not be trapped by language. A voice begins to beat my chest, cavity and rhythm, chaff fresh from grain, separating me from need. I thought I'd snapped that wishbone branch myself. No, I am fly from nature, nature fly. At dusk, gleaming marigolds gathered beneath my feet singing, we were stolen, shipped across the Atlantic. Invasive is a word I heard, stolen. Thrash, 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 and we speak in gloom. Spending that time with the tools and the land, I also began to realize that I grew up down the street and around the corner from the plantation land where my ancestors, including my granddad, who I grew up with, were sharecroppers. And before that, were enslaved. And so what did it mean for him to have come around the corner and begin to build on top of marshland so he could build a house and have a family there. And you just have to know my granddaddy to be, I'm like, he did this? My granddaddy was wild. He was a wild character. When I look back, I think about the ingenuity and the courage. And I think about also his willingness to make a geography with my grandmother, and what Black geographies hold and what they teach us. On what I believe it's Catherine McKittrick calls the modern grounds. Granddaddy's tools. I am 33 the first time. I put my hands on a shovel the first time. I feel my dead granddaddy alive inside me. I am digging a hole to put me in with granddaddy's shovel. Daddy yells for me to stop lying in the middle of granddaddy's field of grasses. He says the moisture will make me sick, but my ears have a new fear filter. I am listening to spirit. I am not dying today. Thank you. While writing this book for research, I trespassed on those plantations. I just went right on in there. It's like, all right, ancestors, protect me. I'm going where you were. Be with me as I go. And here I am. So that worked out. This is like an ode to that time, is what I like to call it. It's a little bit, what's the word? It's transgressive. Record keeper. When I visit cypress mead plantations on riverside back roads, I ask the real planter class to tell me their names. I go and I tell all my dead to let loose, to transcend illegible death. I know I come from the real planter class. This kind more likely to rise up. This kind more likely to take their own life. This kind more likely to take ours. I come from somewhere before writing, before lists. In South Carolina, lists run long, and I am from a list of unknowns. Beneath my feet are children, beloved and blooming like clovers, a rooted song of fungi protecting my every step. I know I come from the real planters, real dark, brave people. My great-great-great-granddaddy Friday's cerulean hands inside dirt life, not beating the earth for indigo, cotton, and rice industries. I drive to Moja Bay and watch a ship from 1526 roll in with nightingales painted on its starboard. My great-great-greats are exalted inside the International Paper Mill's cloud. They tell me not to be afraid to go far and find love, so I go. Thank you. Now we're going to take a little journey into Plantersville, South Carolina. It's a small area that's a part of Georgetown County, South Carolina, where I'm from. Plantersville, South Carolina. I take the Winyah Bay on a tour de Plantersville. The local rice museum would like to come, but it cannot until its donors complete the following. 1, pamphlets and videos denote that the natives were not European discoverers. 2, its ticketed events acknowledge the enslaved West and Central Africans stolen to build a third of the nation's economy. And 3, its elevator is fixed so all the people can enter the museum safely. My grandma Thelma and grandpa Mose went to the same school, right here. They walk up opposite sides of Exodus Drive. Now we are beside their house. This is a field where their school used to be. It's where my mom forgets she ever harvested squash. Down Jackson Village Road, up and at the bend, across from the Candy Ladies Brew House, just before that big magnolia is where my grandma Lizzie and granddaddy Silas were married. This iron ochre tub in my parents' front yard is where my daddy took hogs to slaughter when he was 9. Less than a mile from here is a creek where my kin disembark with fish rods, cold beer, and jokes. It's where I'll be ashes spread across the Black River. This is where people put flowers and crosses for whoever died at the crossroads. They call it respecting the dead. At the crossroad of Exodus Drive and Jackson Village Road is where I saw my first live alligator washed up from a hurricane, playing dead. I watched folks gather from 4 directions of the village for food. Here, still, is 300 acres of white-owned land where my ancestors were people called booming rice industry. Yes, bienvenue means welcome in French. Yes, this is called Bienvenue Plantation. Just down the road is Chakora Wood Plantation, where the first U.S. white woman planter who did not plant is honored by a plaque in her collections of my ancestors' narratives. It's where my great-great-granddaddy Friday is buried, and it's where I cannot go without permission. It's where I went on field trips and screamed with joy as my soft body flew down acres of loud water, slides over the smoothest grasses I had ever seen. Where I tried to be a child, spinning around the vehicle, and I let my feet lift off the ground, just a bit. Y'all all right? All right. This next poem is an erasure piece. Excuse all my, this is how I don't remember time. Excuse my neurosis, but this is the preface for a pamphlet at the Rice Museum in Georgetown, South Carolina from the 1970s, wherein West and Central Africans are not mentioned, enslaved Africans are not mentioned, indigenous people aren't mentioned, and Black folks aren't mentioned. And so what I did was erase language and leave language that honored the land and the indigenous people. Face. These people's names. The Bay, Winyah, the rivers, Sandpit, PD, Waccamaw, Santee, Hopsabee, Chakora Wood, Wachesaw. Tangible reminders of the past in Georgetown County, the native, conscious of the history of Georgetown County, land of live oaks and Spanish moss. A holy place. When I went into Bethlehem, tucked into the elbow of Jackson Village Road, I wanted to be more. Quiet than quiet was, because inside, the walls were golden. I'd smell pine saw and fried chicken, hear rice boiling, babies crying and elders moaning. I was afraid of something dark and powerful I felt and did not understand. Miss Ruby led the women's choir and could cuss you back to your maker. Every Sunday, magicians showed up, turning bodies bent by work and grief into bolts of lightning, ringing out shouts until the old tempered floor quaked beneath my feet. 13-year-old Rev Young would preach until faces were honey drenched with relief. I didn't know all those hallelujahs and amens, church ladies humming and waving fans meant free. its long right rope, children running around the church steeple on a red brick porch covered in crimson suede, the purple sky like someone built it around Bethel. Bethel iahMae is still there. It's my family church, and we just discovered this past Sunday. I don't attend that church or any church at this point in my life, but my cousin was visiting. She went in there and found my brother had engraved his name in one of the pews when he was a kid. And I thought, that's the kind way. We were here in the pews. Thresh and hold. I'm going to read the titular piece for the book. What I'll say about this is that there was a lot of dealing with this idea of what it is to have people identify as a planter class and think about what it means for someone to really be using their bodies in that way and the type of work that went into the technology of harvesting rice. And so I started to think about the women in my family as well and what their work was and continues to be even beyond their time here in the physical. And this poem came out. Thresh and hold. Flooding in now, I rest so I can harvest new worlds, already next so still. Without rest, I cannot hear my grandma Lizzie and my grandma Thelma. Without rest, I cannot hear my Aunt Carolyn composing for her Lord. I cannot hear my Aunt Angie cussing angels while guiding me across memory waters. I am learning what real power is. A year ago, I wouldn't have felt our bright red, black, green chords of spirit calling. Women in my family have dropped dead one day, and the family kept right on working. I rest like I have tomorrows growing on a vine outside. I rest like a horned owl. My ancestors turned into machines by rice is booming in Georgetown, sale extravaganza. I rest beneath my grandma Lizzie's oil-dressed magnolia, painted white and green at the trunk. I risk surrender to her dark sachet. West Africa caught my granddaddy Silas by the brain. Here's the cosmos I picked from his field of grasses. I say, women in my family have dropped dead one day, purple gowned and waiting for us in the next. Thank you. I really love the titles of the roads where I'm from because they're just very black and very rooted in biblical. So like Ezra Road, Ephesians Road. I find it fascinating. So Exodus Drive, when I think about Exodus and freedom and the different things that Exodus holds in itself. One of those roads is Jackson Ridge Road, and so I wondered what would happen if the road spoke. You grew from your granddaddy's dirt in evergreen spaces. There are gorgeous colored greens, ripe yellows turning to golden reds, hanging from brown and moss-smothered trunks, standing tall all over the lands of Beth. A black man, last name Jackson, quietly purchased land from a white man and sold acres of unworkable plots to your great-granddaddy. Your granddaddy Silas filled the swamp with dirt gathered from the woods he slept beneath as a runaway child. On the south side of his house is where he used to plant his brain, was a farmer's almanac scrabbled with voices and visions. This too is your inheritance. His greens reached and sprawled beyond his containers, spilling into all his children's kitchen sinks. His mother and the life in his eyes died when he was 10 years old. Your granddaddy was already all different kinds of blue. reaching, spreading, going on and on and on, talking to people he could not see. Non-linear. My grandma Thelma taught me to wash my face, and my mom was my first English teacher. I knew how to read and write by age 3 because Grandma Thelma was forced to quit school. My mom fed me language like grits and called me a good, smart child. When I left, I did not have to be good. I only had to love what I loved. When I was 8, I asked my mom why the world went black when I closed my eyes. Where did everything go? 2 weeks after I was born, Grandpa Moja told her, "Feed a meal, bro, that's it." After college, we walked together on a bike path near my first bachelor apartment. Mom said it was a quick 4 hours away from her. If something happened, she could get to me. She said I was walking too slow. I was watching the wind pick hair from my Labrador's coat. I saw my mother and her feet next to mine, inflamed like her mom's. I was like a child when we got back to my apartment. She asked me to take off her shoes. I'm doing something that's very, there's a lot of pleasure in it. I'm reading backwards in the book. I've never done that at a reading before. And it's very interesting to see the art that's happening. And I think I did that because I was thinking about the poems that speak towards land and body and memory and history. And then they start to get a little bit more personal, I'm noticing as I go backwards. My black, rural, queer childhood. I want my body, but I don't want it to be called a body. Reminds me of when my family and I were driving through Manning, South Carolina. I was the first to see the big black sound, the buzzing in all our ears. I've never heard of a horse fly. I just knew it was big. I screamed, and our big brown caravan stopped at a triangular median, smack dab in the middle of a small downtown road. I screamed. The horsefly buzzed and smacked itself into the wide windows of blue sky. I don't remember. I can spot a single ant on a dark surface. Maybe I've been afraid to claim my body, afraid to be wild and break out into all this sky around me. Perhaps I can burst through ceilings and glass, explode into joy. I'm going to make some decisions because I'm coming close to time. Let's see. Grandma Thelma, always good. Grandma's important. My grandma told stories or cautionary tales. Grandma Thelma told me if I slept on my back, a hag would ride me and I'd never return, so I trained my body to sleep on my stomach. Even now, if I wake up cold, I open my mouth and repeat the 23rd Psalm. Grandma Thelma told me I might see a flat eye when I was 7 years old. I could imagine cypress knees growing full bodies to walk the hungry road, an entire body of eye nicknamed Platt. Grandma Thelma told me I'd feel welcomed by the eye. I'd be made to feel safe and loved. But if I looked directly into that big white-bodied cornea, I'd forget where I came from. I'd be disappeared. If anybody asks you what's the matter with me, If I kept worrying, it's where I'd end up, she said. Terrified, I hid from my last name like a purple lizard beneath a magnolia leaf. I crossed the road, marking my distance. I put my hands in my pockets, running for my life. I didn't want to point. I tried to avoid the engraved D. I tried not to smell my grandma Lizzie's perfume, mothballs rising from the dirt. I listened to the chickadees around me. Today, I drove myself to our family graveyard. With my windows slightly ajar, I watched smoke fleeing from my cigar. I'm sliding in no more struggle. I got out. I poured one for my Aunt Angie. My poetry mentor always says he wants to meet my mama because she dropped me off like that at the grave. He's like, your mom's trill. I am bound for the kingdom. Written after Florence Price, the composer, and Mary Anderson, the singer. I am bound for the kingdom. My granddaddy Silas was born on the Nightingale Plantation in Plantersville, South Carolina, on riverbanks that love. 3 generations of my kin captured in a green-tinted photograph hanging in my daddy's den. Tonight, my eyes will take each old world bird from the crop space, send them home with their songs and favorite foods. Look out for me, I'm coming to. With rice, okra, hard-boiled eggs, and Lord Calvin. My daddy says if I get out of my car on Nightingale Lane, the folks who own it might shoot. My daddy says, never leave the driveway. Glory into my soul. I watch all of my ascendants, their faces reflecting me in that photograph. Their eyes are dead, black-eyed Susans. This last poem, thank you so much for your presence. My favorite thing to do since I was at least 10 years old, rapping in church, is to read poems aloud. It's my favorite thing to do. So thank you to the Halsey Institute for having me. Thank you to iahMae for joining me. And thank you all for being here in presence. The Black River, whispered dreams, Spanish moss reach. When we moved back to where my parents grew up, I was eating more rice than I knew existed, and I did not want to be. Up and down. The village is known as Jackson Village Road. I didn't understand home. Why people were speaking to me in home. Stories telling me home. Which of our dead home? I resembled home. So many cousins I had, home. And so many questions for God I have never prayed, home. As much as I, home, home. Wonder, home, 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 home. Thank you.
What's next?
Snacks and some wine.
what's next in your life?
Oh.
I don't know when I'll see you again, so I gotta catch up and stay
I'm
abreast.
teaching at Aeromont. It's a craft school in Gatlinburg next week. It's really cool.
You stay on the move.
I do. But yeah, I was telling Marlanda about it. They do have writers there from time to time, so it's a great place to be. Love being in community with artists.
Well, we look forward to more community engagement with Camilla at the Halsey Institute of Art. Contemporary. Thank you, darling. Pardonnez-moi. When I saw your dress when I was on the bus, I knew you'd end up here. On to the next. We shall see you again. I got Queens of Hip Hop to go hang out with.